Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Man, and welcome to Thursday's edition, yes, Thursday's edition of the DC Multiverse Daily. On today's show, we asked the question, what if Justice League was a success? Yeah, very, very interesting. I was thinking about that earlier. We talk about Amber Heard's confirmation that she will reprise her role as Mira in Aquaman 2. Personally, I'm happy about that, and I will explain why I'm happy about that. And finally today, we will discuss Man of Steel being on HBO Max and how very, very important, not only that we watch this multiple times and talk about it being on HBO Max, but AT&T have done a little questionnaire over on Twitter, and it's very important, vital, if you want to see Henry as Superman again, that you reply to a certain bit on their poll. Anyway, let's start with this question. Let's go. We've been talking about the multiverse recently here on Big Mouth and the DC Multiverse Daily. Let's go to another Earth where Justice League was a success. Imagine if they postponed it for 1 year so Joss Whedon could actually get this film right, or get it right to the way that he wanted to make it and Jeff Johns and Kevin Sugihara wanted it made. Postponing it by a year and saying, look, Zack Snyder's moved away from this film because of the death of his daughter, that would of course be a lie, but everyone will be sympathetic. No one will be frustrated or angry by the postponement. Let's be honest, at that time before we saw Justice League, Joss Whedon was everybody's favourite pet. Let's be honest about it. Let's not pretend. And the truth is, 90% of the people who have been going around saying that Justice League is an absolute car crash, which it is, by the way, and fighting for the Snyder Cut, if they liked Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut, would never have seen the light of day. You can be triggered by these words, but it is the truth. But what would have happened if Justice League was a success? Well, we would never have seen Zack Snyder's Justice League. Never. Never would have happened. And the truth is, you never would have fought for it. Because there's another truth. Because a lot of people were saying, I've just said this, but people who said, who now say they hate Justice League, a lot of them in first viewing were saying that they liked the movie for a very, very long time. And it was only after a while when people realised what was going on, and a few people started speaking out and, keep on putting that awful gif of Henry's horrible CGI on his upper lip, where people started to notice this was a rushed movie, rewritten, reshot, and it was an absolute car crash. Of course, the big thing for Justice League was it was a financial failure. If it wasn't a financial failure, because fans as well as studios react to the box office, and the reason it was a flop, and there were many reasons why it was a flop. Well, there was no repeat viewings, right? People weren't really going back to see this film. Now, the opening showed that. Now, the opening's strange in a way because it's a Justice League movie and people didn't run to see it. Now, normally, word of mouth is very important. Now, the word of mouth from the reviews and the Rotten Tomatoes score wasn't very good. So that didn't help people rushing out. The intelligent people knew this was a car crash. I knew it was a car crash as I was watching it. I said it before. I came back and did a reaction to the movie on my old Instagram account. And I was close to fucking tears. I was heartbroken. But as time went on, I tried to say, well, it wasn't so bad. It didn't make so much money. But it was lucky it made even the money that it did. And we can move on. But it was pretty clear that from the moment financially it was a flop, that Warner Brothers weren't going to persevere with Joss Whedon as the lead-in for the DCEU. Literally, this guy replaced Zack Snyder as running the narrative for the DCEU because that was Jeff Johns and John Berg's and Kevin Sugihara's plan. And also something else that would have happened if Justice League was a success, Kevin Sugihara would never have been fired, And maybe the J.J. Abrams situation, bringing him in, would never have happened because he insisted that Sugihara was removed. There's no question about that. That is the truth. Now, I think Sugihara would have been in a stronger position to remain on the top table of Warner Brothers, even with AT&T coming in. Because when AT&T came in, they looked at the numbers, they looked at what was going on. And the sad truth about Kevin Sugihara's leadership of Warner Brothers Pictures was there was too many mistakes, too many flops, and it wasn't only with the DCEU. You know, he'd been there for 4 years. He ran it in a very problematic fashion. I don't think he was fired or lost his job or forced out because he gave some woman some work because he was sleeping with her. I think it was Justice League and the running of the DCEU that led to him being forced out of the studio. But if Justice League's a success, that's never going to happen. And you're looking at a very different DCEU if Justice League is a success, right? Because Justice League is a situation where they're looking at, you know, reframing a franchise. They're looking at, it's like when someone tries to creep into your room, open the door slightly without you noticing. That's what Justice League is. It's sold on a lie that everything's all right, everything's hunky-dory. Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder are friends. Zack Snyder begged and pleaded for Joss Whedon to come in. We know that's an absolute misinterpretation of the situation. I don't think that Joss Whedon and Zack Snyder have even met before. I could be wrong now. I'm sure this is the internet, so someone's bound to throw me a picture and prove me wrong. But I don't. They definitely weren't friends. And Joss Whedon was even on Twitter like a month or two ago, not a month or two, but before Zack Snyder's Justice League was announced. He was making fun. These people never thought that Zack Snyder's Justice League would ever see the light of day. We won, of course, and that's a good thing. But if Justice League was a success and came out in December of 2018 instead of December of 2017, I think we would have had a more interesting situation, and I think it probably would have been successful. First of all, there's no terrible CGI because the film was rushed. Now, let's remember, this is very, very important to understand why this film failed. I'm not talking about the moral issues of what they did to Zack Snyder and what they were attempting to do. That's another case in point. The point being, this film is a Frankenstein's monster and a car crash, not because of Jeff Johns, not because of John Berg, and definitely not because of Joss Whedon. It was Kevin Sugihara's insistence that Justice League was released at the scheduled date, the same date they were going to release Zack Snyder's Justice League, right? So, Joss Whedon's rushing to do this movie. There's no time to perfect CGI. He's rushing to rewrite this movie the way that Sugihara wants it, and definitely the way Johns wants it, right? Which is a lighter, more inspirational tone, but dealing with the issues that Zack set up in BVS. They didn't want to deal with those things, but they had no choice. It had to continue. That's the whole thing. What they wanted to do was reframe the franchise slowly, continue from BVS, then move totally away from what Zack did. And I think if you postpone it for a year and you've got the chance to really rewrite something a little bit more plausible, and then I don't think you, the audience, and I, the audience, notice a damn thing, and we don't fight for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack Snyder remains quiet because there's no call for it. There's a different situation going. You must remember that all of us who love BVS and MOS were very, very quiet. I wasn't quiet, but most of the fandom who fought for the Snyder Cut were very, very quiet during Man of Steel and during the crap we were getting during Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. We only rose up when we're finding out all this evidence about what they did to Zack, right? And so you delay it for a year, they perfect it, it's a hit, then you can get the Injustice League, and they were setting all that up at the end of the movie. They were still going to do that. Joss Whedon would have got Batgirl, and we would have gone down this very, very different direction. There's no question about it. If Justice League was a hit, then there'll be no multiverse strategy. Absolutely. Walter Hamada wouldn't have come in. Walter Hamada only came in because Justice League was a mess, right? They had so many different situations with Zack Snyder's first two movies and the response and the divisive opinion, and the divide about Zack Snyder. But then, after all that conversation, you've got a flop. And it's the first DCEU flop in Justice League. If Zack Snyder's Justice League is released December 2017, it's a hit. It's a surefire hit. Maybe another 850, 900 million, and people saying it didn't take enough, but it still would have been a plausible hit. I don't know what you do. But the whole problem, of course, goes back to they didn't have confidence in Snyder. They kept on interfering with the work, like with Suicide Squad, like with BVS, how they put out an inferior theatrical cut. And they did that with David Ayer's Suicide Squad as well, getting a trailer editing company to edit the movie together. This is hideous, schoolboy and schoolgirl, decision-making. It's not the decision-making of experienced people. And it's the kind of decision-making that comes when you're nervous and you don't know which way to turn. As I read what Cavill said to the Empire podcast yesterday, they weren't really sure what they wanted to do because they didn't know which way to turn anymore. And there was really not a right or a wrong decision to make. Personally, if I was in that situation and I wasn't a fanboy, I just would have allowed Snyder to finish what he was doing and then moved on. Because if you allow Snyder to make his 3 Justice League movies, they're going to be divisive. They're going to make a little bit of money for them, though. Then you move on. You say, thank you, Zack. As I said a billion times before, then you can move on with Joss Whedon. So I do feel if Justice League was a success, we would have gone down this more family viewing route, right? And it would have been, like the MCU, and they would have made more and more films. Shazam would have definitely Shazam would have been different because David F. Sandberg was never going to direct Shazam before Justice League. As I say, Justice League changes everything. If Justice League is a success, Shazam happens, but David F. Sandberg is never going to direct it because Walter Hamada, who came from New Line Cinema, isn't going to bring another New Line Cinema director to do Shazam. It would have been very, very different, and I don't know who they would have brought in. Joss Whedon himself could have ended up doing Shazam, which would have been really, really interesting, and would even Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson be coming in now to do Black Adam if it wasn't for the failure of Justice League. You see, that failure of that movie changed everything because once you bring in Walter Hamada, he brings in his ideas from what he's been doing on a smaller scale. Todd Phillips' Joker movie never gets greenlit. That never is going to happen. Excuse me. So the failure of this film changed the entire direction of what this franchise was going to do. And I do think it is fascinating just to sit down and think for a moment what would have happened. Would it have been better or worse for the franchise? Well, in terms of moving on from Zack Snyder with Justice League and it being a success, we just wouldn't have noticed anything. We would have carried on the train and it would have been perfectly adequate. It just wouldn't have been the same as what Zack was attempting to do. So it's very interesting to just think about what would have happened. Something extremely different. I don't think James Wan comes in to do Aquaman either. It's interesting that Justice League flopped and straight after James Wan's Aquaman is $1 billion plus global hit. I was shocked by that. And people say you can only be judged by the last picture in a franchise. Well, nobody gave a shit because everybody came in to see Aquaman. And there's one reason why everyone came in for Aquaman. Firstly, it's a bloody good movie. I don't care what anyone says. Secondly, Joss Whedon actually, for the mainstream, did some interesting things with Aquaman in his version of Justice League, and people liked the element and where he was coming from. So he was so popular after Justice League because people did like him in that picture. There's nothing wrong with his face. They haven't done any CGI. He worked in that movie, and that's why everyone rushed to see him and Aquaman. So that's interesting. So not everything about Justice League is a negative, even though we're supposed to say that. But you've got to analyse these things and look at it. So I think we would have been looking at a very, very different franchise if Justice League was a hit. And Amber Heard confirms that she will reprise her role as Mera in the Aquaman sequel with Jason Momoa. I think this is really, really good news. Now, there's complexities now. There is a big toxic dislike for this young actor right now because she was married to Johnny Depp, and so many personal details about their marriage have come out. And there's so many people who just don't want a bar of this woman because they feel that she's destroyed Johnny Depp's career. And let's be honest, if she never got involved with Depp, she probably never would have been successful in the industry. There's no denying that. Look, she took her opportunity and she got success, and there's nothing anyone can do about that. In terms of Johnny and Amber's relationship, it really isn't your business or my business. I can understand how you can feel frustrated, that you feel maybe she's profited and his career has been destroyed. Now, we don't know what's true and what's not about this relationship, and I really don't want... That's not really the issue here. The issue is she played Mera in the first film and in Justice League. She's going to be in Zack Snyder's Justice League. She's even in his trailer. I even think that it was Zack that cast her. So to cast dispersions on Amber and be frustrated about her being cast means that you're casting dispersions on Zack. Because I think it was Zack who chose who was going to be in his Justice League movie. Don't forget, at that time, he was totally in charge of casting. So he must have cast Amber Heard. Look, my interpretation of the marriage of Depp and Heard is simple to me. These are two very, very highly strung people that probably need a lot of counselling. And the court cases back and forth really aren't going to do anything. They've already hurt Depp's career. They could have hurt her career. It's hurt her reputation. The only thing I will say for Amber Heard is she's the only feminist in Hollywood that actually, shines a light on the gross abuse on women and young girls in poverty-stricken countries, in third world countries. And she's done so much in, bringing attention to that, because many of these feminists in Hollywood are only interested in representing what women in the West are going through. And let's be honest, women in the West are pretty much hunky-dory. But this young woman has actually shone a light at what's going on to women and children, right, in third world countries. And I think that's important. So with the bad, you've got to bring out what positive things she's done as well. Now, I'll be honest, Amber Heard to me isn't the greatest actor in the world. She's not terrible, but she's not incredibly strong. She's not Amy Adams. She's not Gal Gadot. We know that. But in truth, there's not one person who didn't like her as Mera in the first Aquaman film or in Justice League, right? So I just feel we know her as Mera. There's no reason, there's no point in replacing her now. I think it will be a big mistake. I didn't like the fact that they replaced I forgot what the actor's name was in Batman Begins, who played Rachel, and then they changed the actor. And that takes away that personal affiliation you got for that character. I don't like recasts. I mean, obviously we get them with James Bond, we get them with Doctor Who, and I accept that and I like that. But I still see it as problematic because you've always got to get used to that new actor and that new way of doing things. I just think we started the DCEU with Amber Heard playing Mera, and there's no reason, as long as she comes in, does her work, and she's not problematic. And the people I've spoken to from within the industry say she's perfectly fine. She's a sweet young woman. She does her job. She's really excited to be involved. And really, that as an audience, that's all we can ask for, that she does her job. I think she's a really good Mera, and I want her to keep the job, and I'm glad she's keeping the job. What she does in her personal life, and there's big accusations of alleged domestic violence towards Depp from her, and there's no denying that, and there's lots of other things that have come out. But here's the thing, and this is the thing everybody forgets. We are all fallible. Behind closed doors, we all do things we wouldn't advertise on the internet. But she's a famous actor, and everybody knows a lot of things about her that could be true, that are not true, and form an opinion. I would stop targeting toxicity towards her. it is unfair that her career will flourish and Depp's is still in the mud. I agree with that. It's not fair, but at the end of the day, whatever happened, happened. I think personally, they both did some shitty things while they were married to each other. Again, none of our business. I don't want to see anyone in a marriage being physically abused or emotionally tortured or anything like that. It's not very nice, but it all goes back to mental illness, and they need to get the help that they need for that, for future relationships, right? But again, I can't save the world. You can't save the world. There isn't a real phantom zone where we can grab shitty people and throw them in. And this is the problem with the internet. I love the internet. I love the internet because I'm fascinated by people and I love meeting different random people. One of the points of my internet existence is to make new friends via the internet. That's why I do what I do, because I'm fascinated by people, not just by good people, pure people, different mentalities. I think it's fascinating. And she's got the job. She hasn't done anything within the job itself to justify losing it. Everyone was up in arms when James Gunn lost his job because of his tasteless tweets. He should never have lost his job. I don't agree with those tweets. I don't agree with his humour. But at the end of the day, he shouldn't have lost his job because of it. And I'm glad he got his job back because that's right. Now, this young woman doesn't deserve to lose her job because what she was doing behind closed doors, however wrong it is, right? It doesn't matter, right? That's for the legal system to deal with, not for us. But it is shitty that Depp is down in the mud and his career's down in the mud and hers is thriving. But that, my friends, is the way the cookie crumbles. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. She's a bit of a bad girl, and I find that a little bit attractive. So that's me. That's where I'm coming from. But at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, she doesn't deserve to lose her job. And it goes back for me that at the end of the day, she's Mira. We've embraced her as Mira. Just let her keep the job. I know this will make the toxicity towards her worse, but at the end of the day, I don't think you should be aiming toxicity towards her. This is the problem with the internet. And if you do want her at least be constructive with what you're saying to her. Now, she's not ever going to read your tweet. She's not. She has an existence on Twitter. She hasn't come off of Twitter. But she's got people who read her stuff, and you're just wasting your time at the end of the day. So I will conclude on this subject and say I'm happy that she will be in Aquaman 2, and I'm more than happy to get your opinions and reactions to my opinions about that. Going through Deadline on Twitter, and I noticed they were interviewing the two showrunners and creators of the Harley Quinn show, and they're talking about season 3 and their thoughts behind the concept of the show. So I thought I'd read that out to you because it's quite interesting. Harley Quinn creators tease move to HBO Max in season 3 storylines, a healthier love life for Harley, Poison Ivy's POV, and a takedown of failed policing. Oh, God. They don't give up, do they? Anyway. In Harley Quinn, Justin Halpern and Patrick Schumacher found a challenging entry into the world of animation, which would subsequently become their most critically acclaimed effort to date. Created in concert with Dean Lowry for the streaming service DC Universe, the adult-orientated comedy centers on the escapades of the titular Harley and her partner in crime, Poison Ivy, watching as they rise to power in Gotham and ultimately fall in love. In recent years, the character of Harley Quinn has gotten a big screen treatment via two-time Oscar nominee Margot Robbie inhabiting the character. Thus far in 2016 Suicide Squad in Kathy Yan's Birds of Prey, which was released in February. The actress will soon reprise it in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. Really looking forward to that. But with Harley Quinn series, Halpern and Schumacher wanted to dive deeper into the complexities of the character than any live-action DC film has, in the same time opening the door to other R-rated animated comic book adaptions. I don't think they've really gone deep into the character or anything like that. I think he's a lot of fun. But anyway, we read on. In September, news emerged that the series was renewed for a third season and that it would be moving permanently to HBO Max below. Its creators discussed that transition, teasing season 3 plot details and their interest in making an animated Harley Quinn film. I'd absolutely be very interested for that. Deadline. Harley Quinn has attracted a major audience since its debut last year. What has it been like to see? Were you confident from the get-go in the show's success? Patrick Schumacher. Well, we wrote the first 2 seasons in a complete vacuum. The writers' room started as early as November of 2017 and finished in January of 2019, so we had all the story arced out. All the production drafts were actually done all the way back then, so we really had no idea what to expect other than the nominal reactions that we get from the New York Comic Con teaser. That was just an independent animated piece that was used for promotional purposes, which kind of set the tone, and people seemed genuinely excited about that. But still, even when the trailer first came out, I think people had a lot of questions. It seemed maybe a little bit off-brand, this idea that we're kind of taking the piss, making fun of some of this world. My interpretation of the online reaction was that there was quite a bit of concern from the fans that we were only going to be poking fun at these beloved characters, and it wouldn't be done with love. But I think since the show has come out, fans have appreciated that, yeah, we're making a lot of jokes at the expense of these characters, but it is done with love and with a pretty deep knowledge of their legacies. That's true, and I think we all do appreciate that, don't we? And while these are sort of bastardized versions of all the characters, for the most part, they still have their core moral compass, which is brilliant. That was pretty evident as early as when we got to test the animatics with a couple of the early episodes, focus groups. They saw how far we were going with Commissioner Gordon, making him this really flawed character, but still they managed to find him very funny, and he tested very well. I think that ended up giving us a lot more confidence and license to keep running in that direction with a lot of the characters. So it's been really gratifying. Justin Halpern. I think that Pat and I, most of our career has been on shows that either have not resonated at all or resonated in a very bad way. Laugh. So to be able to work on a show and have it go out there and have people not just like it, but be very vocal about how much they like it, like my favourite show growing up was The Simpsons. Wow, yeah, absolutely. What a great show. I love The Simpsons. I can't stop watching it. Family Guy, awesome shows. And my dream has always been to make a show that had that sort of renaissance. And obviously this is in no way anything comparable to the renaissance The Simpsons has. But to see people quoting lines and using gifs from the show and things like that, that to me is so cool. This is from Deadline. Tell us a bit about the origins of the series. What did you pitch on Harley Quinn entail? Halpern. Warner Brothers came to us. Susan Rovner specifically, who's no longer there. Yeah, she's been sacked by AT&T as well. There are a lot of changes. Warner Media making a lot of changes for the better. No longer there, but was a big supporter of ours. She came to us and was like, look, we want to do an R-rated animated Harley Quinn show. We have no idea what it is or what we want it to be about, but we want it to be a comedy. Do you guys want to pitch on it? And we couldn't say yes fast enough. We'd almost exclusively worked in network TV, so the chance to have a different relationship with standards and practices was exciting. And also we just loved this character. It was one of those characters where there had been work put into it, but it felt like she never had her own story. This is obviously pre-Birds of Prey, and it just felt like there was so much to mine. Yeah, pre-Birds of Prey, which of course is cool, but maybe David Ayer's Suicide Squad and what they did with her wasn't so cool. Hey lads, anyway, we'll move on from me losing my shit a little bit. Our first take on it which is what we ended up doing was like, look, we want to do Mary Tyler Moore, but if she was a psychopath. Pat and I love sitcoms. We love the history of sitcoms. We've worked in sitcoms, and to be able to take that kind of template and put it within the craziness of the show like this, we felt like we could tell some very funny, interesting stories that hadn't been done. Also, at the time, they were going to be Deadpool Cartoon. They were going to be a Deadpool cartoon. As we were starting work on ours, we heard that we had no idea what they were doing, but we wanted to make sure ours was a take that we believed in. We weren't responding to anything else. So that was kind of how it came about. Yeah, you see, this is interesting, actually. There was going to be a Deadpool cartoon. Now, I'll carry on in a minute reading this. This is interesting because is it Rob Liefeld or Paul Liefeld, the co-creator of Deadpool? I saw him on TikTok screaming to the high heavens, Disney, what you doing? We're in a pandemic. Where's the animated series? Where's the cartoons? Fox, before they were bought out by Disney, were having big plans for this kind of animated series, but with Deadpool on Disney Plus, and Disney are not interested in doing this kind of thing because, again, it's R-rated, and all they're interested in is the family audience. And this is brilliant by WB to actually have the idea to do this, knowing they were going to do a Deadpool cartoon and getting in there first. So actually, Warner Brothers aren't always behind, Marvel and what they're planning to do, which is very interesting. The only thing I would add to that is that Warner Brothers has a very, very rich history and legacy of all of these characters. And Looney Tunes, etc., Cetera, E.T., Cetera, and they are all classics. They are beloved, and they're also kind of all ages. This was like the first time that the studio was broaching the possibility of doing something that was adult-focused. Adults only for television. Let's just say, just an ongoing series. This was the first time that they were looking into that. So that was really exciting for us as well, because it felt like, we have the chance to in success, maybe open the doors for a whole other world of Warner Brothers animation. And this is the thing, because the potential of this show means other animated spin-offs and the Harley Quinn, animated movie based on this series as well. Fucking brilliant. I haven't seen episode for episode, all the episodes, but what I have seen, I really do. I must say, it is funny and it is brilliant. It seems to have performed pretty well. We ourselves are starting to develop other animated pictures, and I know of other adult screen properties, and without that, the studio is looking into now, post Harley's breakup. So that's been really exciting too, just in terms of the legacy of the studio and how ingrained in animation it's been over the years. It's true. But to be able to break out into a new branch, that's very interesting, because if they are pitching new animated series, and I don't know if that's within the DC kind of thing or other things, these things would obviously be on HBO Max again, because animated sitcoms and comedies are very popular. The Simpsons kicked down the door of that concept, as has Family Guy. And if they can get a bunch of these on HBO Max, again, they are leading the line against Disney Plus. And if you're a fan of Warner Brothers and Warner Media and HBO Max and you want them to succeed, this is very, very good news. Deadline. What were you looking to explore in Harley Quinn's first 2 seasons, and how were these ideas informed season 3? The idea that interested us in the first season was, if you're in a toxic relationship with a larger-than-life person that sucks up all the oxygen in the room, and you've been in that relationship for a long time, how do you figure out how you are once you've extricated yourself from the relationship? So the first season was all about Harley figuring out what her identity was without the Joker, and that was why we didn't do any dating stories. We didn't do any stories about her falling in love with somebody else in the first season, because we didn't want her to leave this relationship that defined her and jump into another relationship. Makes sense? Just by definition, you're a bit defined by who you choose to be with. So once we ended the first season, she had figured out who she was. Now the question was, what do I want? And in the second season, Harley ultimately realizes that she wants to be with Ivy and explore a relationship with her. So I think in the third season, sorry, I've got a bloody notification in the way there. So I think in the third season, the general idea we've been talking about and the room hasn't even started yet. These are just conversations between Dean Laurie and myself and Patrick. But the idea is, when you've mostly been in toxic and bad relationships your whole life, how do you then be in a good one? How does the baggage that you bring from all these other relationships affect the relationship you're in that you really want to work? Reportedly, you'll also be examining Poison Ivy's origin and Commissioner Gordon's low approval rating in Gotham. Definitely, we spent 2 years digging into Harley, and Ivy was her own character, but her stories were told mostly in relation to Harley. So I think in this third season, it'll be interesting to flip that and dig deeper into Ivy and her life and tell some stories through her point of view. So we're excited to be able to do that because it feels completely new. Somewhere to go that we haven't gone. That isn't going to make the audience feel like we saw 2 seasons of that. What the fuck is this? This is interesting because if you look at the success of The Simpsons and Family Guy, it's not only that The Simpsons are great, but it's actually their supporting characters. Without Flanders and Mr. Burns and all of those people, and Moe, and all the, really, it's like Stewie. He was more of a supporting character at first, but him and Brian have become so popular that they have their own episodes and their own feature-length episodes. So your supporting characters in these animated sitcoms are truly important, and I think what they're doing here is good. Then I think with Gordon, we've always portrayed the Gotham Police Department as a really incompetent. Also, everyone goes rogue anytime they want to go rogue. And I think we're seeing in real life the actual repercussions of things like that. Obviously, it's a comedy, but those themes were already baked into our show. Yeah, of course, we're going to have the whole police situation, aren't we? They're all covering it. They all want this timely messaging. It is tiresome, but we'll go with it and see what happens. Yeah, you've probably seen it's made its way around Twitter for sure. The Zoom that the LAPD and Mayor Garcetti put out for a sort of town hall, essentially for Angelenos to come together and voice their criticisms of the LAPD in the Mayor's office. I tweeted out, and this was genuine, I would love to open season 3 on an actual Zoom where the GCPD is just being berated by the city of Gotham for their ineptitude. Yeah, it's like having Gordon deal with the reality of policing in Gotham has completely failed, and him realising what is this new system that we need to put in order to effectively police Gotham, and he's even capable of it. Is he even capable of it? Because the system is so fucked up. Gotham's a terrible place to live. I mean, if you think of all the cities in comic book lore, can you think of a worse major city to live in than Gotham? No. Like, it's just constantly under attack. And why does Metropolis look like this utopia when Gotham is this total cesspool? So being able to also dig into that and have Gordon go on a journey within that first season would be very, very fun. I do agree it would be an interesting thing to do, and I would be interested in that as long as they keep the comedy and the interesting elements of the character. Deadline, do you expect Harley Quinn to return? Do you expect Harley Quinn to return by the end of next year? That will be, I think, an optimistic guess. Oh, wow. I don't know if they've announced the episode or the number yet, but let's just say we're not doing 2 seasons back to back like we did. That may give us some relief in the sense that there's not as big of a production load. So I would say optimistically we're looking at probably the end of 2021. So that's interesting. So no Harley Quinn to the end of 2021. What they've got on their side, despite the pandemic delaying so many things, and basically everything on the Burbank Canadian lot I've heard has been delayed. So Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl, The Flash, Riverdale as well, all cancelled at the moment, and I will keep you updated with that. But because this is animated, right, this gives them a chance not to be delayed. They can social distance, do the voices. It can all be done by Zoom as well. So nothing's going to stop this happening, but unfortunately we will have to wait till the end of 2021 to see it. Deadline. How do you feel when you heard about the show's transition to HBO Max? What do you think it will mean for the show? We were thrilled to hear that. I mean, it's a conversation that's been months long. It was a matter of when, not if, for a very, very long time. We kept hearing that week in, week out, and then obviously there were some organisational changes at HBO Max that I think slowed things down a little bit, perhaps. But at the end of the day, we got what we want, and we're thrilled. In terms of HBO Max, in the cursory conversations that we had with some of the executives there who were just kind of friends with, they're all very excited. We haven't even had our official kickoff call. Haven't even that you usually have before a season with all the development and current executives. I think we'll get to hear directly from them in a professional capacity next week. But my hope is that fundamentally the show will remain exactly as it was on DC Universe, and I don't think there's any reason that it couldn't, and I agree with that. Aside from DC Universe not really having the broadcast standards and practices at all, laughs, It was so infrequently that we got any notes of any use of violence or language or anything like that. It might be a little different on HBO Max, but I kind of doubt it, which is really good news. This is what streaming can do, by the way. Deadline has production on Harley Quinn been affected by COVID-19 pandemic yet in any capacity? Not really. We're already in post-production, finishing the last couple of episodes of season 2 when the lockdown happened. And aside from watching cuts or listening to mixes in the comfort of our homes, it wasn't really that different. It's not that different because it's animation, and there's no point trying to say that animation is affected. The Simpsons hasn't been delayed. Their season's already started. Same with Family Guy as well. Deadline. Do you expect that it will affect your work on season 3 in any significant sense? Honestly, I think it just depends on how long we're in this situation. I think if it does affect us, it's going to happen much later in the game because we have the luxury with our schedule of writing quite a few episodes before we get into production. I would say that 80% of the episodes, in theory, if we maintain our schedule, will have been written by the time we start recording. But I think at that point, hopefully things are a little bit more lax in terms of our ability to move around. But again, it's not going to really affect them. For me, it's really about interaction with the actors, right? Like, can you go into a recording studio? Yes, you can. Can you sit across from them? Yes, you can. With the glass in between you? Yes. Is there, I'm saying yes, by the way, not him, everybody comfortable enough to be able to do that? Because I feel like we've gotten really good performances out of everyone, and it's really an interactive experience between the director and the actor. I've had the privilege of getting to direct a lot of the voice performances, and just the energy and that ability to give the actors the ability to improvise in person is so important, I think, to the show. But I think you're still going to be able to direct them, even if you have to do it via Zoom, you know what I mean? That this is how these records go. They're very improvisational. You have people who are so skilled in that. So I think that's the thing that could potentially be affected if we're not back to some semblance of the past way of doing things. But I feel pretty confident that we'll have enough lead time to work to that stuff. We work that stuff out. Deadline. Both in animation and live action, the DC universe is always expanding. Having said that, would you have an interest in going forward in making an animated feature centered on Harley? Schumacher, yeah, we would love that. When we were waiting for a season 3 pickup, we were kicking around ideas with the executives over at Warner Brothers Animation about that sort of thing because we're like, well, we have stories to tell with these characters. We want to continue going with it. And if season 3 can't happen, maybe we can do something in the feature space, which is sort of independent of the network picking up the show or not. So that is something that has been on our minds. Right now, we're not planning on it, but it absolutely is something that we would be interested very much in doing down the road. Brilliant. Brilliant little article. Sorry it went on a bit, but it is interesting to look at how these things work. So the first 2 seasons of the Harley Quinn animated series are so fresh, so vibrant, so funny. We had the whole Snyder Cut and the Last Jedi t-shirts as well. That didn't derail anything with the show, and we all supported that, and we started to try and sell the shirts. So I just think it's an innovative TV comedy, and I'm really happy it's getting a season 3, and I'd love to see an animated feature of that as well. If it's not already, very soon HBO Max will have Man of Steel on the platform. Now, AT&T have actually posted a questionnaire about Man of Steel. Now, this is very, very vital, and I want to briefly go into this. So there's a poll, and they're asking certain questions. What's your favourite thing about Man of Steel? Henry Cavill as Superman, Lois Lane, this, that, the action. Make sure, if you want to see Henry Cavill in his own Superman feature again, right, and doing cameos and all of that, you must go onto the poll and click Henry Cavill as Superman. This is very vital and very important. They are putting the feelers out to see how popular he is. Now, that would show no agreement has been made yet. Now, maybe he signed a deal so they can, if they want him to do it, he can do it. That's what all these contracts are, you know, for the potential of it to happen. But they are putting the feelers out to us, the fans, the consumer, the public, how much we like this guy. as Superman and how much we love Man of Steel. So A, you must binge Man of Steel on HBO Max as much as you can. I can't because it's not available to me, unfortunately, here in Cyprus. It's only available, I think, in 2 or 3 places. So America is the main one. So if you do have this platform available to you, it is so important for the ability of Henry Cavill to be able to have a sequel and play this character multiple times again, that you binge this on HBO Max. But I will repeat, on the poll, you must click on Henry Cavill as Superman. Very, very important that you do this. So this is a great opportunity. It's why it's going to be streaming on HBO Max. They want to know if a Henry Cavill Superman movie or Superman straight to streaming TV series, right, is viable. So you must show them that it is viable, because we know it is viable. Man of Steel is a great version of a Superman movie. Henry Cavill is a great Superman, and we must show them how viable he is for the future. Comment down below, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with even more DC Multiverse Daily. See you again soon. Bye-bye.